Hi, I'm Laura, and the answer is 42. If you're the kind of person who bothers with my videos, I'm guessing that meant something to you. It is, of course, a reference to Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, originally a radio play, then adapted into its most widely appreciated form as a trilogy of 5 novels, and many other forms of media since. To call Hitchhiker's Guide a formative piece of media for me would be a tremendous understatement. Here's my copy, with a bookmark from American Girl magazine. This isn't the first one I owned, though. That one looked like this. I bought it with my own money at a time when that was still somewhat of an event at a Walden Books for a price so low that it was on a big red and yellow bargain sticker on the front cover. My dad read the whole thing to me over the course of several years. I was probably perfectly capable of reading them myself at that point, but reading out loud continued to be a big father-daughter thing in my family, and I'm really grateful for that. Plus, my dad is actually a performer, and his comedic timing definitely enhanced the experience. I found myself constantly looking over his shoulder to make a mental note of the page numbers so I could go back and copy down the funniest bits into my purple pocket-sized composition book where I kept all manner of great quotes to have at a moment's notice. That giant brick of a book was perfect for bedtime stories, but not so great for carrying around to read whenever I had a free moment, so I bought this copy used, probably from a half-price books, and probably with my parents' money, since it was assigned reading for my 10th grade chemistry class. These are the copies of the rest of the trilogy I have now, and they're the books that I brought with me to keep myself sane in between visiting hours the first time I experienced the death of a family member. And here, there's actually a bookmark in there that I think might have been from that trip. I actually just kind of quietly swiped them from my parents' bookshelf and left behind my anthology copy when I moved out, but Mom, Dad, if you're watching and you want these back, I will bring them back at Christmas. I got rid of fully half of my books when I moved across the country almost 2 years ago, but it was never even a question that these would stay on my shelf. I somehow lost the restaurant at the end of the universe along the way somewhere, which is a real shame. All of which is just to say, these books are really important to me and to who I am as a person. So it should make me really happy, right? That anytime the number 42 comes up in any context amongst any group of people, there is unfailingly some kind of response, ranging from a shared knowing chuckle to a downright fandom squeal. 42 is always the answer, someone will say, and we'll all smile and feel cool for a moment. The meaning of life, someone else will shout, and we, the nerdy in-group, will all laugh intelligently. And my god, the number of t-shirts I have to choose from. There's this cool Venn diagram one that every social media sidebar ad wants to sell me lately. See, it's life, the universe, and everything, and where they overlap, there's 42. Or there's this one, which has co-opted some religious imagery to tell us the real meaning of life. I can get this Keep Calm poster that's got the answer to every question, or if I'm feeling particularly better than you, I can sip my beer from this koozie that condescendingly tells anyone reading it, you know what it means. But no, I do not own a single item of 42 merchandise. You know why? Because it all sits on a throne of lies. See, 42 is a very specific punchline in the world of Douglas Adams. It is not the meaning of life, it is not the answer to every question, it is not the one thing that exists in the overlap of life, the universe, and everything. And dear God, the person reading your beer koozie does not know what it means because nobody knows what it means. That's the whole point. 42 is the answer to one very specific question. Many, many millions of years ago, a race of hyper-intelligent pan-dimensional beings got so fed up with the constant bickering about the meaning of life, which used to interrupt their favorite pastime of Brocchian ultra cricket, that they decided to sit down and solve their problems once and for all. And to this end, they built themselves a stupendous supercomputer called Deep Thought. But when they turned the computer on, instead of asking it specifically for the meaning of life, they just kind of asked it for the answer. And when asked for further clarification, they just blurted out life, the universe, everything. 7.5 million years later, when Deep Thought had finished running its program, it was revealed that the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything was 42. This is, of course, nonsense, because, Deep Thought says, they've been so busy worrying about the answer that they've never bothered to figure out the question. What is the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything? Well, there was a very complex computer designed to work that out. A computer whose merest operational parameters Deep Thought was not worthy to calculate. A computer of such infinite and subtle complexity that organic life itself made up part of its operational matrix. That computer was called Earth. But then a race of horrendous bureaucrats who write literally mind-numbing poetry destroyed it to make way for a hyperspace bypass 5 minutes before the calculations were completed. So no, 42 is not the meaning of life, and it is not the answer to everything. It is the answer to one very specific question, a question which nobody knows. If we knew the question, we'd understand the answer, and probably, therefore, the meaning of life. But we don't have the question, so 42 is absolutely meaningless. And if it sounds like I'm being pedantic, damn straight, because that's the whole point of the joke! The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is hugely a story about bureaucratic nonsense and how it affects not only those of us stuck on Earth, but literally the entire universe. 42 is meaningless specifically because Lunquill and Fook should have asked, what is the meaning of life? But they didn't. They asked a question that, after a fashion, yes, most intelligent beings would consider essentially interchangeable with what is the meaning of life, but they asked it of a computer, who interpreted it perfectly literally, as computers are wont to do, and therefore came up with some hot nonsense as its answer. Saying or making a t-shirt that says that 42 is the meaning of life, or the answer to everything, or that you know what it means, fundamentally misunderstands that this is not a joke about life making no sense, or about it being only comprehensible to a small in-group of people, or even about there being nonsensically straightforward answers to big bad philosophical questions. It's about how even the most big philosophical questions are subject to the bounds of mundane clarity. It's a joke about technicalities and clumsy wording, and therefore gets completely mucked when you're not very careful about the wording in which you retell it. Saying that 42 is the meaning of life distinctly demonstrates that you are not in on the joke, and therefore my righteous indignation and hatred of this friggin' t-shirt is way more justified than that of Star Wars fanboys who think I'm a fake geek girl for liking the prequels, right? Right? Oh god, I just admitted that I like the prequels on the internet. Please don't hate me. I do, in fact, think it is the case that I have a more legitimate grievance than the people who signed this petition. This is a misinterpretation of the actual literal text, while this is an addition to the text that shows us a character who's aged a little less than gracefully. I'm not operating from a place of misogyny or racism or of feeling like the people who make stuff I like owe me a perfect fulfillment of my self-insert fantasy. I'm not harassing people who buy this shit on the internet until they have to delete their entire public online presence. But, I'm not really coming from a place of wanting everyone to understand this amazing joke better than they already do, either. I'm still hugely coming from a place of needing to feel superior to people who, in my view, like my favorite stuff wrong. I love this book because it's 214 pages of geeky gold from a writer who's got a direct line to my precise flavor of funny bone. But I also love it because having read and loved it gets me into a club of intergenerational geeks for whom it's been a really formative piece of media. I remind you, this book was required reading for my 10th grade chemistry class, and not because we could learn anything about chemistry from it. It was because if you're gonna be the kind of geek who pursues chemistry at any kind of higher level, then you've gotta be the kind of geek who knows the recipe for a pan-galactic gargle blaster. Or at least that's the meaning I've attached to the assignment. I don't know, Mr. Stern, if you're watching this, please feel free to correct me. And even as geek culture has become more mainstream, the Club of Hitchhikers has remained a relatively more exclusive one, probably at least in part because there's never been a really widely regarded screen adaptation. If you're gonna get this story in its best form, then you've gotta read a book. Or, even weirder, listen to a 40-year-old radio play. And as tough as it is to admit, I like being part of that club in no small part because it is more exclusive than something like Star Wars or Batman or Doctor Who. And as really, really painful as it is to admit, I hate that there are people who, in my view, get away with co-opting what is honestly a piece of my identity without appreciating it in what I see as the right way. When I'm in a public place and the number 42 comes up in one context or another, I often respond by saying something along the lines of, well, I guess we figured out the question. I see this as a more sophisticated and accurate understanding of the joke, and it does tend to get a smaller reaction than something like the meaning of life does. But of course, it's not that hard to lob the same kind of criticisms I brought up earlier in the video at it. Of course, the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is not how many minutes after 1 o'clock is it right now, or how many subscribers did my channel have before Sage Hayden liked my self-promo tweet. Douglas Adams specifically makes fun of a character who suggests that what do you get if you multiply 6 by 7 might be the question. I like my version of this joke better than others because I see it as more accurately in the spirit of the source material. But I also like it because I know that the people who laugh at it are going to be people who appreciate this story in what I see as the right way. And even worse, I like it because that group is going to be smaller than the group who just know that 42 is significant somehow. I tend to have exclusively bad things to say about arbitrary gatekeeping in geeky fandom communities, but I don't generally like to admit that I know firsthand how friggin' good it feels. It feels good to be part of a pretty exclusive club, and it feels good to have people who want to be in that club and to be able to say that they aren't for whatever reason. But, I want more people in my club. I want more people to have the kind of mind-blowing, identity-forming experience that I did with these books. They're good books! So I hereby promise to give The Meaning of Life at least a cursory laugh instead of a self-important lecture. Here's to being part of the solution.
I gotta see you, so I'm gonna send a rocket up. Hotline to NASA, cause I don't wanna cock it up. Sucked in by your supernova gravity, getting hot like black hole recipe. Take me to the mothership, show me how to work it. Interstellar species getting down and dirty, cause I come in peace. Just wanna learn your ways, wanna Netflix and chill out in outer space.